Welcome to SVG-TV News for Monday, September 18th, 2023. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. As the country prepares for this year's cruise season in the next few weeks, starting on November 1st, Minister of Tourism and Culture Carlos James is projecting a 9.5% increase of cruise ships coming to Port Kingstown. He outlined the figures at a news briefing today at the National Insurance Services Conference Room.
We are projected to see a 9.5% increase in calls to Port Kingstown. And these are larger ships coming. And that, again, is a sign as to the growth within the cruise sector. The numbers may very well hold. They may decrease due to cancellations. These things do happen. But so far, the tentative numbers are showing that we are projected to see a further increase in port calls to Port Kingstown, dealing with ships capacity ranging from 15 to 3,000 plus passengers. And I'm happy that we're going to see a lot more persons disembarking in Kingston City and traversing across the length and breadth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the upcoming cruise season. So that is
Also, today's news briefing, Minister James announced that representatives from the Swiss Global MSC cruise line will be here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to recruit up to 100 Vincentians from the tourism and hospitality services sector. The recruitment drive is expected to be held on October 9th and 10th.
By announcing MSC cruise lines, we have been in discussions over the past few months to have them come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are very keen on coming here to work with us to ensure that we can recruit, they can recruit a number of Vincentians to go off on their ships. And they're hosting a job fair at the cruise ship terminal on the 9th, from the 9th of October. I believe on the 9th and the 10th of October. They'll be looking to recruit persons and up to some 100 skilled workers within the tourism services sector.
Minister James said the government of SVG is working to train a lot more persons in the tourism and hospitality services sector so that there will be no shortage in personnel as persons take up jobs elsewhere.
And if one cruise ship is coming here to exclusively recruit 100 Vincentians, up to 100 Vincentians. You would recall recently I'd signed an MOU with Royal Caribbean to recruit up to 1,000 Vincentians across various disciplines. They were very keen on training Vincentians, having them go off for training. But in this recruitment drive from MSC, they're hoping to take professionals who have had some experience or training or formal training within the services sector. And we are going to work with them as well as the stakeholders and the SVG Hotel and Tourism Association to ensure that there's a balance that remains where that is concerned in terms of persons leaving. So we're hoping in October from the 9th, they're about to welcome MSC Cruise Line, and we will facilitate that, of course, to ensure that we persons who are interested in working, have a few vacancies: bartenders, guest service personnel, waiting staff, massage therapists, and varying forms of employment within the hospitality services sector.
While acknowledging that there is a need for pension reform here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, head of the Public Service Union, Errol Boucher, said in their analysis, the picture is not merely one of expenditure outpacing contribution, noting that there are several factors that have given rise to pension reform. Boucher, along with economist and lawyer Luke Brown, were panelists on SVGTV's Viewpoint program on Sunday, discussing pension reform, what it is, and its necessity at this time in SVG. Who will pension reform affect, and in what way?
It's not purely demographics. It is not necessarily only that we have an aging population and there are more retirees. There's a lot more at play here.
But there is also the issue of unemployment.
There's the issue of unemployment. There's the issue of a continual low economic growth. And the actuary himself stated that more or less a robust economy will solve the problem, which is quite evident because it means that you have better salaries in a good economy, you have high employment. High employment, better salaries mean you have more contributors, and higher pay means you have more money going into the fund, right? Those are factors that we have not even looked at or nobody's really talking about, okay? Because one of the things that he would have projected, the perfect way of solving the problem with NIS, he said, is good economic growth.
That's your reference in Mr. Derek Osborne.
Right. That is, but that is in the air. That no one is talking about it because it is perhaps wishful thinking. So then we move on to the other factors, right? We also have to look at the management of the NIS fund. I like how Luke went on and he indicated the benefits. Those benefits come to what keyword? Contributors. The people who finance the NIS are the contributors. Government, businesses, employers, paying on behalf of all of these workers in the country. The workers paying themselves. It's the workers' money. The workers are the only ones who finance the national insurance, the National Investment Fund, or the National Insurance Fund. The workers, whether it is them and their employer or the self-employed alone, it is the workers' fund. Now, we have to, in looking at reform, you must look at how that fund is being managed. You must look at that. That is key. It is critical. Okay? If you have good independent management, you can rest assured that when they come and tell you, we need to do this, you have a buy-in to it.
Stressing the importance of transparency, Boucher noted that the unions have been looking at the issue of pension reform for years now and have asked to see the reviews, but that it is troubling that only recently they've been made available.
11th actual report was just made available a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, I think, or less than that. It is a report that the unions have been asking for since in 2017, 2018. Because the unions took on this pension reform issue about 4 or 5 years ago when the government started talking about it and making reference to actuarial reports that we could not see, that we wrote several times to both the CEO and to the Minister of Finance, got no response, absolutely none. All of these documents were hidden until recently when this thing becomes public information. And we basically start saying, you're hiding information. You want us to engage in reform. But we don't have information. We've been asking for it. There's the 10th actual report, which was out in 2017. We just had it last week. Now, why is all of this the case? The law clearly states that the Minister of Finance must rest in Parliament all reports. So there's a failure on the Minister of Finance to even do that. Once it is in Parliament, it becomes public document, right? So all of us can see it. That doesn't happen. It has never happened in the past. It just started happening. The information, let's say in the 10th report, if the workers, the stakeholders, the unions, had gotten hold of that information, we might have already engaged in pension reform. Because I saw in your statement you say late action, but that was in 2017. The recommendations made in the 11th are also made in the 10th. Who had the information? The NIS management and board and the government had it hidden away that nobody could have gotten it. So there's a series of, there's a whole set of factors that you have to, that we as a union say, listen, we got to deal with all of these things first. Because going forward, the sustainability of NIS and the existence of national insurance and its benefits and its pensions is extremely, looks at it's 85% of the people depend on that alone. That is critical, very, very critical.
Boucher was asked if the recommendations outlined in the 11th actuarial review, which are similar to the 10th review, were implemented back then, whether he believes that it would have been an easier sell, to which he answered in the affirmative.
But of course, it would have been, because the pressure on the workers would have been different. You see, what we're grappling with now in a reform year, as the government says it's intended to reform by January next year, what we are grappling now is high cost of living coming out of COVID and everything just skyrocket. Okay, we just had salary increases which were minimal, small, but you're grappling with all of that. It is very tough on workers' pockets. It's very difficult for people to feed their families. But we having the reform conversation now. Imagine if it was done in 2017. The burden would have been lessened.
Economist and lawyer Luke Brown said there are several factors which must be taken into consideration when reckoning with the NIS and its current situation, and the major factor has to do with the income that the fund receives and the expenditure.
It's all well and good for us to have a wider analysis that takes into consideration economic growth and that takes into consideration unemployment levels and takes into consideration factors of management. But the most important factor has to do with the benefit levels relative to the contribution income. And I could drive this point home by making a simple reference. The typical person who makes contributions to NIS for 30 years over the course of their career is going to, during the period of their pensionable life, receive all those contributions back in a period of about 2 to 3 years. And yet they're going to live, on average, if we look at the life expectancy, for 12 years beyond that. So they get back their contributions within 2 to 3 years, and it is even more stark if you consider the fact that the employee doesn't pay the full NIS contribution. So you pay, so the profit, so to speak, to the employee is even higher when you consider the fact that the employer pays the majority of the contribution to the NIS.
That's deferred income, eh? Okay, so
it's not deferred income, it's a contribution to the NIS.
Yeah.
It's a contribution to savings. You might look at it in that way, but it is a NIS contribution. So we have a scenario where you're getting back all your contributions in 2 or 3 years, and you're receiving a benefit if you live to 75, as is the life expectancy, for 12 years beyond that. So it is a very good investment that is generous. Now, what we have to do...
So you're getting back a lot more than you put in.
You're getting back a lot more than you put in, and nothing is necessarily wrong with that. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I would like everybody to get as much as possible from NIS. But in the light of this reality, we have to ask ourselves, what is sustainable? And it is that very fact which is now coming to a point of maturity that is at the heart of the matter of reform. We want everything to be perfect about the NIS, but at the heart of the matter is the fact that you're now paying more in benefits because of a generous design than you could have in contribution rate.
In more local news now, we hear that the first of 2 workshops on the Safe School Recognition Program commenced here today at the University of the West Indies Global Campus, SVG. The workshops are being hosted by the Ministry of Education, SVG, in collaboration with UNICEF and CDIMA. The Safe School Recognition Program is part of the education sector implementation strategy recommended in the National Safe School Policy Guide, encompassed of the module Safe School Program 2 toolkit. The Model Safe School program was adopted by 12 ministries of education in the Caribbean in 2017 as the preferred approach to reducing risk in the education sector. The one-week training is divided into 2 workshops. 16 pilot schools are expected to participate in Workshop 1 from today, Monday, September 18 to Wednesday, September 20th, while Workshop 2 involves the training of 12 local partnering agencies in using the Model Safe School program assessment tool from September the 21st to the 22nd. Speaking at the opening ceremony today, Chief Education Officer K. Martin Jack said the Safe School initiative will contribute to the goal of quality education for all.
Also has to do with our children when we think in terms of safe sexual abuse, other issues that affect our children. So all of this, we want to ensure that that particular culture is encouraged in our schools. The program also encourages compliance in relation to the safety standards that are expected at all educational institutions. This initiative will contribute to the goal of quality education for all by ensuring that learning spaces are indeed safe spaces. The Ministry of Education have overall responsibility for implementing the Safe School Recognition Program, but we cannot do it without the support of all our partners locally, regionally, and internationally. I hope for the next 3 days that this will be very productive for the schools represented, and that whatever you learn you can put into practice to ensure that your school is safe and you have the mechanisms in place so that when your school is accessed, you will achieve an acceptable level of certification as a
Representative of UNICEF, Nicole Trudeau, said that the Safe School Recognition Program celebrates and honors educational leadership, innovation, and commitment for the implementation of safe learning facilities.
Children is something that requires strategic planning, organized effort, and dedication. Far too many times over these last few years, we have been reminded of the realities, the impact of various natural disasters, of national health emergencies, and unfortunately of man-made threats such as violence and crime that impacts our children and the well-being of our families. These threats, however, can serve in many ways to remind us and to motivate us to be vigilant. It is our efforts that make a difference in creating safe schools for our children that better protect their lives and their well-being. Children should feel both emotionally and physically safe within their schools during times of emergency and also times of normalcy. To create this, it takes strong leadership within the Ministry of Education, as well as dedication from administrative staff, such as yourselves, from teachers, from security officers, from counselors, from food vendors, from maintenance workers, and of course, from the students themselves. We should honor these efforts. It is essential to recognize and celebrate schools that have considered the expectations and have invested in making the improvements that are needed to promote the culture of safety.
And Deputy Executive Director of SEDIMA, Krista Craig, said that the schools play an extremely vital role in the development and sustainability of a nation. Hence, every effort must be made to keep them safe.
Secure and protected from damages and destruction from natural and man-made hazards. The school is the place where our future leaders are molded and educated, and more so, it is the place where residents are evacuated for safety prior to and after the impact of a hazard. SEDIMA, recognizing the need to build a resilient education sector to be able to withstand the destruction that comes from the increase in intensity, cascading, and systematic nature of hazards, partnered with the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, UNICEF, and other regional institutions to implement the Caribbean Safe School Initiative. This project provides a framework under which the Caribbean implements the World Initiative on Safe Schools. In April 2017, the first Caribbean Safe School Ministerial Forum was held in Antigua and Barbuda. This event was very instrumental in setting the foundation for to advance the safe schools in the Caribbean.
Minister of Education Curtis King said the ministry is happy to be part of the Safe School Recognition Program as he outlined some challenges which the country and the ministry face over the years.
Would have had the opportunity to learn more about the initiative at the last ministerial forum held in St. Martin in June 2022. I must say, my only regret is that our current chairperson of the CSSI, my colleague and friend, the Honorable Rudolph Samuel, is not here with us today. But I know, although he is not present in person, he is very much present in spirit. Now, St. Vincent and the Grenadines have not been spared from the impacts of hazards over the last few years. Without going into detail, I can identify that we have been faced with the COVID-19 pandemic and dengue outbreak started in 2020, and we had the further complication of multiple hazards in 2021, including the volcanic eruption, Hurricane Elsa, how many persons remember that? And of course, heavy rains, all in the same year. This multiple hazard experience is a challenge for the country as a whole, but some sectors are affected worse than others.
Minister King said the ministry will continue to incorporate measures geared towards the integration of schools' safety and hazard awareness in the education system.
Through partnership with stakeholders, both at the local and regional level, and I must say, add to that, at the international levels. In fact, one of the highlights of the school safety program over the last year was the successful hosting of the inaugural School Safety Month in November 2022. This saw the realization of several activities, including displays of safety at the National Science Fair through the Fire Department and St. Vincent and the Grenadines Coast Guard. A school safety essay competition for primary schools on the topic, How Safe is My School? A quiz competition between secondary schools, and a school safety expo where several of our shareholders displayed and shared with students on various aspects of safety.
The School Safety Recognition Program will ultimately allow for the promotion of commitment, innovation, and leadership in the education sector, alongside the promotion of good practices for safe school standards. It is also hoped that it will serve as a stepping stone in disaster risk reduction and mitigation through the development of a countrywide culture of safety. The National Safe Schools Policy Guide on the Model Safe School Program Toolkit urges the integration of a school safety recognition program within the National Safe and Green Strategy being developed for implementation in the education sector. In other local news now, we hear that health psychologist Dr. Joselle Miller said that it is important to provide hope and foster an atmosphere filled with compassion to help change the dynamic as it relates to potential suicidal victims. In an interview with SVGTV News, Miller said the most common methods of suicidal attempts over the years are medication overdose, physical bodily harm, and the consumption of pesticides.
Sometimes when we see the self-mutilation of actually cutting their wrists or their legs or whatever, they tend to be superficial. But if they're actually now at the point where they want to actually commit suicide and to end things, they will go much deeper. with the cuts. Those are the typical ones we have seen. We have seen where persons may have attempted to hang themselves as well.
The psychologist said there are different treatment and therapy accessible within the Ministry of Health to help persons with suicidal thoughts, as she encouraged persons to take the time to care for each other.
I have quite a few persons trained in mental health. So there are different avenues that persons can tap in within the Ministry of Health. There's a mental health rehabilitation center. There are trained professionals within national mobilization. We have within education a lot of trained counselors. We have Marion House. So there are different entities that persons can tap into. As it relates to actually treating someone who might have suicidal thoughts and ideations, we want to get to the root of it. We want to be able to figure out whether or not it is mental, related to a mental disorder like depression or anxiety, which we then will want to treat those disorders or those issues. It is also important for us to help to build the resilience within each other and encourage persons not to give up, because a lot of the time suicide is a very permanent response to something that can be easily temporary. And it is to build your resilience, to build your fighting power.
Dr. Miller also stressed the importance for persons to take their mental health seriously and seek help or support to deal with issues which may be affecting them.
Acceptable. We are all at a point where so many things are going on, we're juggling so many things on a day-to-day basis, that we all have to keep working constantly towards maintaining our mental health and wellness. And it is realizing and being so self-aware that you yourself can feel when something is off, and be able to step back and give yourself the love and the grace and take the time with yourself, be patient, and try to acknowledge where you're at and figure out what would be some of the best ways in which we can move forward. And again, I stress the need for social support. We can't do this thing alone. We need everybody to be involved in the prevention aspect, as well as even when persons have been diagnosed and they're going through their mental challenges and being treated for it, that we still offer the support and be mindful that persons, even with a mental disorder, diagnosed mental disorder, and on treatment, they can still live a normal life. They can be a contributing part of society. They can still be engaged. They can still be useful.